Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you all on board the Protector of Democracy because today we are going to be doing a little deep dive into one of the most, in my opinion, underused backpack stratagems, the guard dog. And this isn't the guard dog rover, the last weapon variant. This is the original guard dog, the one that's equipped with the liberator assault rifle. I've never really used the guard dog backpacks, and when I did, it wasn't often the AR version, but always did strike my curiosity when I did see people using the guard dog why it always was the last weapon variety. So it just sort of begs the question, what's the big deal? Is this really a bad backpack, and if so, why is it so bad? And if it's even possible to make it work, and is there a chance it belongs on one of your stratagem slots during one of your Helldive missions? So I'd spent a lot of time kind of testing it out, bringing it into bot and bug planets, and I have a lot of info that I'm very excited to share, so let's go figure that out. There's a lot to cover in this video, so I'm going to structure this similar to my other stratagem deep dive videos, starting with the basics, a sort of general overview of what the guard dog does and what it is intended to do. The second being its behavior and statuses. How does the guard dog work in the field and what can you expect from it? The third are some interactions here, so how does some weapons and other stratagems that are available interact with the use of the guard dog? Fourth, here's going to be some gameplay and use cases. I kind of bring it into bug and bot planets and break down where I saw it to be most effective and where it fell short. Next are just some interesting tricks and tips I found out, some unique use cases and conditions I discovered while testing. Lastly, I'm just going to give you all my overall thoughts and opinions about how I feel about the guard dog and whether or not I think it's a good, bad, or fair stratagem use. Before we get into it, I just want to clarify, this is not a comparison video. I am not going to be mentioning how or why the AR guard dog is better or worse than the last weapon variant. This is just a pure breakdown of the AR guard dog. If you were wondering whether or not the liberator guard dog is better than the last weapon variant, I'm not looking to answer that question. What I am trying to answer here is, what is the AR guard dog capable of? What can I expect from it in my missions? And if you're fine with that, I appreciate you sticking around, and now let's get into it. So let's start with what the ship, the game tells us of what the guard dog through its description. And it states that it is an autonomous drone equipped with a liberator assault rifle, providing 360-degree cover. It returns to the backpack to rearm. Very simple, very straightforward. Couple things to know here. One is just the name of the stratagem itself. In quotes, it says guard dog, and aside from the other version of it, it is the only stratagem from this list here of tools with a naming convention that way. And as to why, I like to think that the name is intentionally ironic because it does not actually work the way you expect of an actual guard dog. And to those who don't know, a guard dog is a well-trained dog used for the protection of people or property from threats such as other people. It's usually well-trained to listen to their owner and act with their safety in mind, because as the name implies, whoever they are guarding is their main priority. This thing is nothing like that. The guard dog acts more like a mobile sentry turret, and since it's always close to you nearby, it kind of may be seen or perceived as some sort of like it was trying to protect you, but it's really not, and you'll see why as I break it down later in this video. The second thing to note from the description here is that it uses the liberator assault rifle. So not the concussive variant, not the armor penetration, just standard issue liberator. This is the default weapon you get when you first start the game. And this can, raise some eyebrows and question the effectiveness or make you skeptical of it. And I can see why, but let me tell you that the liberator is actually a very well-rounded weapon. It's got great damage, great control. Not that it matters to the robot, but overall it's a pretty decent gun despite having just light armor pen and being something you have from the very beginning. The guard dog does not have the same exact version we have though. You're not able to edit the fire rate, change it to burst or semi-automatic. You can't toggle a flashlight on it, and it doesn't carry the same amount of bullets. Last part about the basics here is when you call it in, it comes with a magazine already loaded in and 6 reserve mags, seen on the sides of that backpack with 3 on each sides. The drone itself is something with independent health, meaning it can be damaged, and when it gets damaged, it will need to return to your backpack to repair. When it runs out of ammo, it will need to also return to the backpack to reload. If you were to die or drop the backpack, the guard dog will simply return back to the backpack and remain idle. Lastly, the only way to reload the magazines on your backpack is by resupply boxes. So the resupply stratagem, and I believe if someone else had a backpack with a resupply on it, those are the only ways to give you more magazines for your guard dog. And one resupply box is enough to fill up all 6 magazines, so don't worry, it doesn't completely eat all the ammo boxes unlike some other stuff like the grenade pistol. However, you cannot manually reload the weapon, and the spare ammo boxes you find on the field will not give you more magazines for your guard dog. That's it for the very bare minimum basics. Now we'll go on to the behavior and try to get a basic understanding of what the guard dog works, how it thinks, and see if we can use that to our benefit here. Also, a little thing I want to note here is that everything I will be saying from here on out, I've noted purely from observation, and it's with that little grain of salt sprinkled across that I want to kind of break down what I've acknowledged to be the different states that the guard guard dog has. The first is a scouting state, and the guard dog relies completely on line of sight to help it detect and shoot enemies. So I play on PC, and if there are no enemies nearby, it will always look wherever I have my cursor pointed to. So not exactly where my character's looking at, just my cursor. If I was to look one way and my cursor was pointed another way, the guard dog will be facing where my cursor is. The guard dog will locate any enemy it has line of sight of within 50 meters. I was able to figure this out by using the ping feature in the game that kind of tells you the distance from your Helldiver to the spot you ping, and I found it to be consistently around 50 meters. And it's at that point that once an enemy crosses that 50-meter threshold, the guard dog will then shift its attention. It will direct itself towards that enemy and face them. And again, this is a scouting state, so it will not shoot at enemies. This is more like if you see a guard dog, you know, like growl or snarl at someone approaching, this is basically the guard dog's version of that. And it's also letting you know, because it's kind of visually communicating to you where enemies are approaching from. And I think that's a valuable piece of information just in case you maybe want to avoid patrols and find a different route that's not so heavily condensed with enemies. Now, the second phase that I'd identified is actual shooting phase, and the guard dog will begin to shoot at enemies once they are within 30 meters of it. Most of the times, this will be the first enemy that crosses that 30-meter threshold. But if you were to suddenly, let's say, turn a corner and there are multiple enemies within now the 30-meter range, it will most likely, from what I observed, shoot at the one that's closest to it. Again, not the one closest to you, the one closest to it. Most of the time, it will be the same target, since closest thing to you will also be the closest thing to it, since you and the guard dog are pretty much always together. But I just wanted to mention it, since knowing that would come in handy, because let's say you are expecting it to shoot at something very close to you and it doesn't, make a mental note of what is actually the closest thing to it, and it's probably going to shoot that instead of the thing that's right in front of you. So when it comes to shooting, it would first locate a target within that 30-meter range, and then it would lock into that target and just shoot at it and continue shooting at it until it either loses sight of it or loses range or the target dies. It is after that then the guard dog will then begin to reevaluate the area, see what is the closest thing within 30 meters, and then have that as a target and try and shoot it. And I have an example here kind of displaying that interaction. So as you can see here, the guard dog and I sort of approach to this base, this light base. There are two bots here, and the guard dog detects the closest one next to it and begins firing at it. Just as that happens, another bot that was slightly behind the first bot jump packs and gets a lot closer, but the guard dog does not change targets. Only when it kills that initial bot does it reevaluate and then fire again. When the guard dog goes and shoots, it always tries to go for the head, which I really appreciate. And again, I know it's not the focus of the video, but the Liberator assault rifle in the hands of someone who's especially cracked at shooting will be able to put in some work. So if you did what they did here and slap that into some AI targeting, always meant to go for the head, you can definitely have some impact. And I've seen the guard dog be fairly quick when it comes to recognizing when an enemy has been killed and then switch over to another target. It's faster than you think, and when you see it operate in quick succession, it almost looks like the smart pistol in Titanfall. Now this next phase is here, something I would not have expected, but from my observations felt it notable to mention. And this is when the guard dog needs to either repair itself or it needs to reload. So in this seeking type of phase, the guard dog will attempt to return to the backpack. And when the backpack recognizes that the guard dog is near, it will play the respective animation depending on what it's there for. I feel the need to mention this as its own phase because of the fact that it could actually miss the backpack. I don't know if it's intentional. If it happens to do this and overshoot, it will kind of glitch out and sort of just repeat this very strange orbit, trying to find it again. And this is where you kind of need to help the guard dog a bit and just do a little footwork to position yourself where it can intercept the backpack and then play the animation it needs. If it were to reload, I've observed to reload to take 5 seconds. And if it were to repair itself, I've observed it to be about 10 seconds long. And the timing points I've chosen for this estimate is when the seeking phase ends. So when the guard dog finds the backpack, the first frame of that animation is where I start the timer. And I end the timer at the point that the animation for releasing the backpack after repairing or reloading it begins. And after repairing and reloading, there's one final animation where it needs to detach from the backpack, get in position, and it's ready to shoot. And I found this to be at minimum 3.5 seconds before I was able to fire a round immediately. And the last phase, if there was to be one, is just the idle phase. So if you were to drop it or if you were to run out of ammo, the guard dog will just stay nestled in the backpack. And even if you're running around with it with the backpack on, if there's no ammo, it will just stay idle and dormant until you resupply it and it's ready to be reloaded. But that's it for the behavior in different states that I've observed, and now we can get into some interactions. And let's start with line of sight. So testing this, I found that aside from an actual wall or a huge wall of rocks, the only thing to prevent vision are smokes. So even in the presence of planetary conditions such as a blizzard, it will still retain its 50 meters of scouting distance and 30 meters of targeting distance. Line of sight also goes both ways, and like I mentioned before, the bot has its own health, so it's almost like another object of itself, and enemies will perceive that as something hostile. So even if you're crouched behind cover with some half wall, the enemies will see your drone, will see the guard dog, and they will get aggro to you. They will not aggro to it, they will aggro to you. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but every time I've initiated a fight from the guard dog drawing aggro, I would still get shot at despite never having shown myself to the enemy. And if that wasn't bad enough, if you're someone who likes to do stealth missions, I don't think the guard dog is for you. It doesn't know you're doing a stealth mission, it just sees an enemy's within 50 meters, and if it just what happens to be within 30 meters, it's going to start blasting. It will always attack enemies within range, so don't bother bringing that armor that makes you less detectable. When it comes to damaging, as for interactions with your stratagems, I found the guard dog to be unaffected from EMS strikes and also unaffected by the orbital gas strike, the toxic gas. If you were to enter a pilot exosuit, the guard dog will not stay outside. It'll actually come back into the backpack, kind of clip through the walls of the exosuit just to get in there with you. If you were to interact with the heavy machine gun placement, a terminal, or any other interactable like the radar station, it will actually remain on watch, so it will not go back into the backpack. Oddly enough, the Tesla tower will recognize it and shoot its arc lightning at it, and since you are almost always the closest thing to it, the lightning will arc from it to you, and if you're not wearing the armor that gives you resistance, you'll pretty much die from it right away. In terms of what can damage it, like I mentioned, the arc lightning, everything else can pretty much damage it as well. I've even been able to melee it midair, and I've seen this make it go into repair. It does not have a finite amount of repair, so it technically is able to stay up for as long as you have ammo. Quick note about the repair is that it does not reload and repair at the same time. If the backpack is in its seeking phase and it's doing that for the purpose of reloading, any damage done into it while it's journeying back into the backpack does not make it go into repair. It's almost invulnerable during that state. Lastly, since it is a physical entity with health of its own, it's an object that has collision. So not saying it will happen, but if you were to shoot a rocket and it just so happens to be in the way, it will intercept that rocket. Same with a grenade. Now we're going to quickly move on to gameplay, which was, by the way, just super fun. This thing absolutely shreds. In Bug Planet, it was able to take care of a lot of the smaller bugs, allowing me to better focus on those larger size units and heavies. As I mentioned before, it always tries to shoot for the head, meaning you want to be able to take out those hive guards, the chargers, and those bile spewers, since they always have an armored head, and you don't want the guard dog to kind of burn through its ammo shooting something that you know it can't kill. Second, if you remember the way I described the way it targets, there are times when the guard dog will shoot at something far away just as it cusps that 30-meter threshold. Just as it does that, there will be a time when 6 hunters will jump on me, and again, this is not really a guard dog, so it will not switch targets to help me from getting mauled. It will take its time to deal with that original target 30 meters away, and then it will switch to the nearest thing, which might not even be the hunters that's on me right now. Despite all that, I still found it to be very effective at Bug Planets. More so, and just beyond the point of effectiveness, I also found the experience to be really fun. As for Bug Planets, this really just showed me how strong the default Liberator is. With a lot of the bots having a weak spot in the head, such as the Devastators, both heavy and rocket, I found this thing to be super effective at quickly dispatching them. Plus, a lot of the default bot troopers are even capable of one-shotting me, such as the one with a rocket launcher. The fact that it's able to quickly snap to those targets and quickly take them out felt very nice for me, so I really appreciated it there. Similarly to the bugs, there will be some units that won't be so good to fight against, such as the Hulks, unless you're shooting on the back, or the tanks, and of course the factory striders. So you're gonna have to deal with them on your own. But if I were to pick which one is a better place to use the guard dog in, I pick the bot planets over the bug planets, and that's only because of the way it targets and the fact that the basic bots are a lot more dangerous than the basic bugs. And for both factions, one thing you're going to want to always just make sure is the way the guard dog is able to angle its weapon. Referring back to the description of the guard dog in the game, it's able to take care of enemies within a 360-degree radius around you. So horizontal aim is pretty much taken care of, but vertical aim is now a little bit restricted. It cannot angle the gun either straight up or straight down. And if enemies are right below and underneath it, it will know it is there and it will try to shoot it, but it will have a very hard time. So you always want to sort of position yourself where it's able to get at a nice distance and be able to shoot at targets effectively. I found the most effective range for constant targeting and fire to be between 20 to 30 meters. Anything beyond 30, it won't shoot at because that's like a part of the scouting threshold. And anything below 15, you might have to put in some footwork to better position your guard dog. Even though the guard dog was pretty good at dealing with the smaller bugs, there were times when I would just stand there and the bugs would be, because of their height, not be able to be recognized by the guard dog unless I kind of moved a step back. I didn't have that much problem when dealing with the automatons and fighting the base bots. Lastly, you will get some benefits from being at the high ground because some of the bots are higher than the guard dog if they're up close, like the Devastators. And because of that, the guard dog just might be stuck shooting them at their neckline. So if you're able to get a little bit of height so the guard dog can better position its angle on the Devastator's head, you're going to really just fry a whole bunch of them. So that's that's it for gameplay. Now onto some tips and tricks I found out. And one thing is the guard dog will always do its best to try and avoid collisions. So it will try its best to respect the walls and other parts of the map, but I did find it able to clip through those destructible walls that are near the man-made parts of the map. And that's the only place I was able to see it clip through. So if anyone else finds another spot, please be sure to share it so we can all reap the benefits from that. Also, if you're standing behind cover that's as tall as you and the guard dog, you can look straight up and the guard dog will hover a bit higher. If you were to crouch or go prone, it will remain at the same place it was as if you were standing, so a couple meters above and a couple meters to your right. If you were to aim with your weapon, it will pull the guard dog slightly closer to you, but I haven't seen anything quite noteworthy of this, but just want to mention just because it's there. While in the backpack, the guard dog, from what I've seen, is invulnerable to damage. It seems to be only capable of taking damage when actively deployed. It is, however, still a physical entity and an object in the game, so Tesla towers can still arc to it despite it being not in use and on the floor. And despite it not being, let's say, damaged while in the backpack on the ground, it is still also something with collisions. So a neat trick I found out was to throw a stratagem onto it to try and make it stick. And this is good if you, let's say, want to have your sentry at a good spot where you feel that the terrain might make it roll off to ensure that it stays there. Next, we're going to be talking about some of the reloads here, and the modified version for the guard dog seems to only carry 30 bullets per magazine. So when you call one in, it comes in with already 1 loaded and 6 reserves, giving you a total of 7 mags or 210 bullets, or so you think, or so I thought, because for some reason, and I'm also saying this with the hope that someone can sanity check me if I'm wrong, but after reviewing multiple clips in slow motion, I was always counting that magazines were shooting 30 bullets except for the one it comes in with. That one, for some reason, to my eyes, shot only 29, meaning you can get 209 bullets on every fresh call down. Additionally, you might be aware of some features in your weapons when you can have a fresh magazine, and you can also have another bullet still chambered in, giving you 1 more extra of shooting over. And the only time I've ever observed the guard dog do an early reload is when it has 1 bullet left. And I was thinking that it was doing the same thing, where that 1 bullet left would be chambered in, it would just reload, giving it 1 extra bullet to shoot. But after counting the next shots after it did that, I totaled only 30, meaning it just dropped the mag with 1 bullet and wasted that 1 bullet just to get a fresh reload. And again, I'm saying this with a sanity check request that anyone's willing to answer, but I do think that the guard dog is just wasting that 1 bullet and then taking on a whole new mag instead of having to just shoot that 1 bullet and then go through the whole 8 seconds of reloading before returning back to fire. When it comes to reloading, if you want to maximize your resupply, because it always gives you 6, I think the better way to do this is with 1 already in the guard dog, because if you were to do it with absolutely no magazines, you will resupply with 6 mags and then will reload, giving you 5 mags in reserve and 1 active. If you were to do this with 1 magazine already loaded, you can resupply and you will have 6 reserve mags and another mag already in the guard dog, giving you 7 total. Also, very last thing, and this is not a tip or a trick, but this is something I just want to point out, is that this whole resupply, this whole using the resupply boxes to replenish your ammo was not a thing until 2 months into the game. So you can see here that the game came out on February. This patch came out on April, mentioning how the supply boxes now resupply the guard dog's ammunition. Meaning for 2 months, people were just using this, watching it burn through ammo, and then be dead weight for another 2-3 minutes until they're able to call another one down. Personally, I feel like this is something that should have been in the game to begin with. I can see definitely how, with a lot of people trying out the game and getting their first early impressions, why they would heavily favor something like the last variant of the guard dog. Just a quick thing I wanted to share there, because I thought it was really interesting. And a quick note on your guard dog positioning is that it seems to always hover above your right shoulder. That is unless you aim in third person and then switch your shoulders. This will get it now to switch over to above your left shoulder, which is good for trying to avoid catching aggro or to maybe shoot at an enemy over left cover. I also mentioned earlier how bullets and grenades and explosions can be intercepted by the guard dog, but it does a pretty good job in trying to stay out of your way as best as it can. As you can see here, I'm actively trying to aim it, and it's doing a pretty good job of getting out of the way and making sure that it won't be caught. On some enemy specific tips here, it doesn't seem to ever target the Bow Titan, which I actually appreciate, since I would rather have my light penetration guard dog shoot at the smaller mobs while I try to handle the big bug. It also seems to not detect the stalkers while invisible unless it is freshly entering into stealth, and although it recognizes shriekers, it doesn't seem to be good at targeting them very consistently. For bots, it's unfortunate, but it does try to target the factory strider despite not being able to do much against that. And the gunships are way too high for it to shoot, meaning it will never be able to target them because they're almost always, even if you're right below them, about 70 to 80 meters above you. Also, for some odd reason, it seems to be shooting at the bot fabricators, and I thought it was doing that because the bots come from there, so maybe it knew that there were bots in there. But I would wait there outside for a while and not see anything come out. So quick tip is to just destroy the bot fabricators before you get close to it. Another thing is that the guard dog is actually pretty good at not hitting friendlies. In all the games I've played with it, I've only been killed by it once, and if you get killed by it, you get killed by it pretty quick, so it's hard to anticipate the damage, sort of pre-stim your way and heal your way through it. It always has left my teammates alone and has also left those citizens alone during those evacuate high personnel missions. Last thing about the guard dog that I saw is that, and this is a head scratcher, so if you can help me figure this out, please do, is that a kill from the guard dog sometimes registers more than once. And I have a clip here where you can see I have not killed anything in some time, and that my eagle strike, which I called in, does not hit anything. The guard dog then shoots and kills a lone automaton, and you see a 4x multi-kill at the bottom of my screen. And I will get tons of multi-kills when playing in bot planets, so knowing that that number may feel inflated is actually just a little bit of a bummer. But you know, in that moment I felt like king of the world, so I'm just gonna take that feeling and run with it. So overall, I had a great time with the guard dog. Not only was I using it a lot, but I was also getting so much more info on just the basic liberator assault rifle and just seeing how strong it was. To be honest, I could see a big complaint about the guard dog being that you're gonna run out of ammo, but I rarely found myself running without any ammo. Resupplies are so common enough to call in that I was being loaded up almost 90 to 95% of the game. I ran it in all my Helldive missions, both in defense and in offense. I found it to put in work in both bots and bug missions, and have seen it absolutely shred in the bot ones specifically. I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's underpowered. I think it's a fair strategy for those who want to go guns blazing and just get into the thick of things. Just remember that it acts more like a mobile sentry, and given its behavior, it doesn't seem to be very guard dog like. But that's it for me today. If you like what you heard and like what you see, please be sure to like and subscribe. I like to cover a lot of Helldivers 2 content and have more videos similar to like this in the works, so if you're interested in that, please stay tuned. I also enjoy reading all of your comments from my previous videos and would love to hear your experience and thoughts on the guard dog, so please feel free to share your opinions. And thanks again for checking out my video, and have a nice day.
Today you've carved another foot